Sir.
Okay, we'll call the Oswego County Civic Facilities Corporation meeting of May 31st, 2024 to order. I guess, Kevin, you want to do a quick round the table?
Sure thing.
Ensure we have quorum.
I will do that. Nick Canale.
Present.
Phil Church.
Here.
Kevin Gardner.
Here.
Len Schick.
Present.
Gary Toth.
Here.
Tim Stahl is here, and Bear Tremble is excused.
So we have a quorum.
We got a quorum, sir.
And Kevin, staff, just have it on record.
Sure, we have Austin Wheelock, the CEO of the corporation. I'm Kevin Lamontagne, the CFO of the corporation. We have Karen Kerwin, staff on operations from the county, and the corporation's general counsel, Kevin Caracoli.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, minutes of April 16th, our last meeting. Everybody get those in email?
Sir.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to review them? Can I get a motion in a second to accept the minutes?
I'll move them.
Second. Motion by Kevin Gardner, second by Len Schick. Are there any additions, errors, or corrections to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are carried. And the notice of the meeting was published in the Palladium Times on May 21st. Northern Oswego County Health Services, DBA Connex Care. Who's gonna run with that? Austin or?
Well, I can start it and then I can kick it over to Kevin. So as sort of our process of moving towards closing related to this project, and this is sort of a function of us just not doing a lot of projects yet through the Civic Facility Corporation. We've determined that the Civic Facility Corporation, because, and partly the other side of this equation wasn't necessarily ready to talk, that through the Civic Facility Corporation, we also have the ability to provide a mortgage recording tax exemption similar to the IDA. And actually with the Civic Facility Corporations, differently than the IDA, we can actually exempt 100% of the mortgage reporting tax, whereas the IDA can only exempt 75% of the mortgage recording tax. So Connex Care has requested an up to $80,000 mortgage recording tax exemption for this project. That up to $80,000 is sort of tied to the up to $8 million in bond financing. So ultimately the value of that exemption would be tied to 1% of the value of that bond financing. So while it says here 80,000, it's up to 80,000. And we have discussed this with our bond counsel at Barclay Damon. Amanda Fitzgerald has gone through everything and has determined that the benefit is eligible for the project. Has also determined that based on the value of the benefit, we do not need to hold a separate public hearing for the project. And really all at this point, it would take an action by the board of the Oswego County Civic Facility Corporations to approve the additional benefit. So this time I'll turn it over to Kevin Lamontagne, who has a cost-benefit analysis he provided in front of us.
Yeah, there's two sheets related to Connex Care in your packet. I guess the cost-benefit, also the color print I distributed. Cover the color print first. This is just an overview I've recently received from Peter Clark at Connex Care about kind of the current status of Connex Care and the number of patients they serve and so forth around the county. A couple of it, and we've already approved Connex Care. We all know who Connex Care is. But two of the impressive things that they have on that sheet is one, their involvement with the school districts, and basically as far as Connex Care is concerned, it seems as though they're willing to work with any school district that might be willing to get necessary capital investment and kind of make the necessary arrangements in the schools to let them come in and run dental or primary care or other services in the schools, but also the number of patients they serve that are uninsured or Medicaid or Medicare is that pie chart, roughly 2/3 altogether on the lower left. So certainly an organization in our county that's growing, but also worthy of support. The cost-benefit analysis, the printed sheet with the orange text, really is what we approved previously when we approved the bond financing, and that, and then the orange text is the additions that we'd be approving today, additional mortgage reporting tax they've also just covered. The bond financing is moving right along, just a little update on the timeline of the project. we anticipate basically this is a fairly complex closing involving the purchase of the building, IDA benefits for the Chase, the developer and owner of the building, as well as Connects Care financing, but it should all close sometime in mid-July, we're hoping, so that it's a fairly quick closing actually for a project with so many aspects from the IDA or Pacific Facility Support. And lastly, I just wanted to comment on something I was thinking about as we got ready to call this group together is the county legislation that was, or county resolution that was approved for the financing. That really deals with the federal law to make the bond tax exempt. That really, the resolution is related to the tax exemption on the bond, on the interest for the bond. The mortgage recording tax exemption is authorized by New York State not-for-profit law, the way the Civic Facilities Corporation is organized. As a LDC, we're allowed this, Austin will give you a view. Can exempt for eligible projects this full 1% of the mortgage recording tax. So the county resolution really dealt with the federal tax exemption on the interest. This mortgage recording tax really the state issue more than anything. So that's basically all I have. This will be a nice, welcome addition to the benefits that we're able to bring to the Connect Care project.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, do you know what the renovation schedule is?
Like construction timeline and so
Yeah.
forth, yeah. So I hear a different answer from the Chase than I do from Connect Care. So somewhere between 4 and 6 months, they hope that they can get that. They're really, they may mobilize before closing.
Are they doing all the renovations, or are prospective tenants supposed to come in and do partial
Right.
renovations
So-
for their own needs?
Good question. Of course, Aqua Spa is on the first floor. They have an existing lease. Renovations are done 20 years ago. Connect Care will renovate the 2 middle floors of this parking level, and the one above the top floor will be, there'll be minor work done there due to systems in the building, heating, cooling, that kind of thing. But the main renovation will be done by the tenant. So basically worked out between, the way the contracts work is the Chase will be the constructor for whatever is not there based on the lease. Connect Care is obligated to use the Chase. The Chase owns the building. They're also in the construction industry, so that seems to make sense. They want to control what happens to their building. So there are talks going on between Connect Care and Oswego Health for the potential of putting some lab space and maybe some other functions, perhaps offices. I'm not sure what in that 4th floor. If that doesn't work out, there's also a private lab company that also does some work for Oswego Health and Connect Care currently that engaged in having this county litigation for Oswego patients specifically.
Just to add as well that the financing that's been approved to date is related to space for Connect Care, and if any costs related to the 4th floor would be related to building systems that cover cover that space. So it's not necessarily to make improvements in that floor. So that, as Kevin said before, that's more of a tenant responsibility to make improvements above and beyond what it is now.
Our lawyers have been pretty clear on that with both the Chase and Connect Care, and looking at construction management contracts and that kind of thing to be sure that the scope of what the bond is financing is only that 2nd and 3rd floor.
Anybody else have any questions for Kevin or Austin regarding the?
Want to make 2 points, if you don't mind, with respect to the tax exempt status. I mean, it's also recognized that Connect Care is a 501c3, otherwise tax exempt, right? So that gives an extra layer of justification and exemption. The other thing that was mentioned is the lack of a need for a public hearing, and that's because the benefits conferred here are under $100,000. And so it's an $80,000 benefit. Falls under the $100,000 requirement for a public hearing, so it's strictly this board's purview, and adoption of a resolution will cover this benefit.
Perfect, thank you, Kevin.
Help me understand this. The bond is for the construction of the 2 floors. And the Chase owns the building and it's being leased, right? And so the mortgage tax exemption is on the bond?
There'll be 2 mortgages actually in this overall project. The Chase will have a mortgage with Pathfinder Bank to acquire the building. That's been approved now. They've signed a letter. And that will be I know you're aware of this process, that will be exempted by the IDA at 0.75% of the mortgage tax on the Chase mortgage as part of their IDA package, basically including the pilot. So this will be a leasehold mortgage, so it's basic, as Ron Tascarella from Pathfinder Bank has said several times, he's basically mortgaging sheetrock. But a leasehold mortgage, what that allows the bank to do is over the term of the mortgage, if Connexcare default, if it was a true default and they were looking to, is in a sense foreclose, what Pathfinder could do is step in Connexcare's shoes into the lease and find a subtenant. So they'd be at that point they'd have the master lease for the building from LaChase. LaChase would continue to own it. They could never foreclose on this mortgage to take the building, but they could take over this long-term lease and then presumably find another tenant to occupy the building. How that might impact the pilot and other things, we can't say, but that is their recourse to basically collect on this. It's
I wasn't aware about a mortgage tax on the construction part, on the sheetrock.
yes, right. So
that was possible.
it's because it's a leasehold mortgage, the mortgage tax would apply, so that's a need for this exemption. This too also came up really in recent, more or less weeks, or say a month or so ago, because we find the Pathfinder commitment letter to buy the bond, to agree with Connexcare to buy this bond that we issue, basically to provide the financing directly. As that was finalized, that commitment letter included this leasehold mortgage, so it became clear that this mortgage recording tax would be due when they closed.
Okay.
And that was kind of the need for this meeting today, for this exemption.
Well,
Does that make sense?
thanks for clarifying.
So there really be one leasehold mortgage and one, I guess, deed mortgage, I don't know what, traditional, typical mortgage for LaChase, and then this leasehold mortgage for Connexcare. I think it's worthy of always mentioning Pathfinder Bank in this transaction, because they have an awful lot, they will have an awful lot of debt out on this project, and well above the value of that building, even probably once improved, most likely.
Can I make a motion for that?
Motion and a second, yes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Nick Canale. Any other questions or comments regarding this mortgage?
So Pat, the only financing Pathfinder's doing for Connexcare directly is the bond.
Correct. Yeah,
And that's being
absolutely.
considered a mortgage at the.
There'll be a mortgage, the bond will be backed by a mortgage, so a typical mortgage would be, the mortgage is the collateral, the note, the promissory note or the note associated with the mortgage is basically the debt instrument. So in this case, it's the mortgage tied, the leasehold mortgage tied to the bond. Kevin, would you?
Yep.
add to that?
Yeah. Because they're doing private placement of the bond versus it being a public offering, you can kind of structure it that way.
So while it's not, in my opinion, it's not great collateral for Pathfinder, at least it's something they can hold on to secure this debt.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's carried. Okay, the audited financials.
Turn that over to Kevin for this.
Yeah, so we know, past discussions, we've been in a catch-up process this year on our audits. We've now completed in the last months, 21, 22, and 23. Now in front of us, ready for approval today. That being said, these aren't complex audits. The Civic Facilities Corp really has less than 5 transactions a year currently in its books. So the audited financial statements are in front of you. I think I'll just jump to the statements. We start on numbered page 5. It's, halfway through. I think one thing to be sure we discuss as a board is that the Civic Facilities Corp, based on its very limited revenue, we've talked about this before, but has very limited revenue. We have $500 a year in fees from the library project. A couple of years ago, we had the closing fees from the library project. Now soon, in July, we should receive fees for the Connexcare project, but we really don't, this company does not have enough assets or income to support its ongoing obligations. Maybe ironically, the ongoing obligation is primarily the cost to produce the audits. So we're in this trap. But as we know and have discussed also as a group, Civic Facilities Corp and the IDA have entered into a support agreement. So if Connexcare fails to be able to, the Civic Facilities Corp isn't able to meet its obligations, there is an agreement between it and the IDA that the IDA would step in and cover those costs in the interest of both of the organizations. Missions are very aligned. they're not related, one doesn't own the other, but they had this agreement between the two independent organizations. So keep that in mind as we look at these figures, because they are very small, they're not rounded. At the end of 2023, we had about $7,800 in cash. The audit costs for 23 were $5,250. You could see the balance, looking at net position, more or less the balance sheet, quite simple. Accounts receivable, $500. That's actually the $500 fee from the library from last year, from 23, which hadn't been collected, but we're working on collecting both 23 and 24. I don't think that would be an issue. Accrued expenses, that's audit costs, the $11,500. It's basically at the end of 23, we still owe it for 22, and we have to accrue for the current year's audit in that year. So basically 2 years of audit in that $11,500, and that's about it. In 2023, we had an application fee down to the revenue side, a change in that position, which is more or less the P&L. Administrative fees, $1,000, $500 from ConnectScare with the application, and $500 accrued as a receivable for the library. And then professional services was the audit. And that leaves it at a loss of about $3,000 for the year. On the next page, again, basically similar information. It's a difficult presentation of the balance sheet. See our low cash position, and we have accrued expenses of $11,500. So basically, what that means, and I just want to underline this point, it's has to do with the lack of financial stability of this company. We have accrued expense of $11,500, but assets of $7,800. So that means we have to pay somebody $11,500, but we only have $7,800 to do it. So depending on the timing, we may need to ask the IDA for some support. And at this point, our intention would be, since we have significant fees coming in July, if the IDA did come in and support a few $1,000s in order for us to pay the auditors, we would then reimburse the IDA shortly after once those fees come in. We don't need to really trigger the full agreement. We don't think we have.
When's it due? I
Mm,
mean, they waited last year, I mean,
yeah,
22.
the bill. Well, yeah, the bill or the audit itself.
No, the bill.
The bill.
Since 2022 wasn't billed, I mean, we didn't pay that.
Right. I mean, as soon as we approve this at this meeting, they'll issue a final statement that doesn't say draft, basically signed, and then basically it'll be due, and we'll have a month. So we're talking a matter of weeks.
Well, that's what I was thinking, is that
Well, they also
maybe
talk
it's
to them
not
and
worth
just-
going to the IDA to.
If it ends up that close, I think that's. I don't see why they wouldn't wait 2 more weeks or something to get their check from us. But
No, it would
that'd
be
be our first approach line for sure.
It would make the next year audit a little more difficult, but they'd probably charge us more if they had to do a transfer between agencies, so.
True. That's true. Another $500. The audit cost.
So enjoy your treats today.
Right.
Good old arms next time.
I know, right?
So,
Yeah, but Len's right. I think we maybe I'll just do a little dance there to get through this next month and a half, and not really end up in a crunch. Gary, you were saying?
yeah, I was just doing the limited responsibilities of this corporation. Is there any other sources of revenue or any things we can generate, just not to,
Yeah.
for profit, just so to cover our costs? I mean, I'm sure the IDA would agree to help out this
Mhm.
corporation, but I'm just curious.
Thing like bake sale or.
Lemonade stand up front, I don't know.
Right now, I mean,
It's
we're
not
just
now.
looking for other projects that will help to, make the organization more sustainable, both from a recurring, $500, administrative fee, but also from project fees. And I
I
think
was
right,
just wondering about maybe fee increases or something, but
We are
again,
looking-
this is just,
We're not really
Thinking
prepared to
out loud.
discuss it today, but we are
Yeah.
looking at the fee structure. If we look at the amount,
Yeah.
like having now nearly, ConnectScare part deal is not done. There's still hours of work to do in this office, and looking on the time that's put in, is the fee we're going to get at 0.75% really sufficient, and also looking to benefit accruing to the company. Is that our fee will be less? I mean, it often is less, but significantly less than the attorneys make and everything else. The hours are also less, so we're kind of looking at that. We'll come back to this group maybe at the August meeting with a recommendation.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
with
it's-
the lack of activity kind of made it difficult to determine what a fee should be. You know, I think we have a pretty good understanding based on this project, which is not necessarily how all projects are gonna be, but gives us a much better understanding of what our time is.
If we fly, one thing I think about is if we fly the helicopter up a little bit is the fees for this entire project have to consider the Chase piece. It's a little unusual that we're doing this in two pieces with the IDA supporting the Chase and then civic facilities doing the bond issuance. If that was all one, under one, well, say a for-profit manufacturing project, all that would be done by the IDA. The bond issuance, the mortgage recording tax, sales tax exemption, there would be two sides to this. So we collectively do get fees from both the Chase and the IDA plus civic facilities gets fees from the Chase plus Connects Care. But the bond financing alone, I think, is worthy of a look at the fees and see maybe some competitive analysis of whether.
If we were to do something similar to this in the future, would we expect to have fees on both sides as well? So if we are using IDA time, it would make some sense because there's, administrative monies coming in on that side to offset it. Because when we first did this, it was just the library, $500 was set up because the least money to do, and at that time we didn't think about audit fees, so it was just $500 no big
The
deal.
library also paid. There was a consultant involved that was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which we're that consultant in this deal. So it's another difference.
Maybe these are things we just think about.
Yeah.
And, cause I'm sure we don't have the answers today, but even during the idea, the only thing I wanna make sure is we covered our costs. At least, we're not looking to make a substantial profit or anything off the projects. We're formed to help businesses get moving, but we don't wanna operate at a loss either. So, any ideas you guys come up with, be greatly appreciated. Okay? Okay, any other questions on the audit? Kevin and Austin are ready to go. Can I get a motion, a second to accept the audit?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Nick, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor? Is there any more questions or anything on it? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, next meeting, August 20th, 2024.
Yeah, we'll see if maybe we can make some of those evaluations, between now and then related to questions you had. I'm not sure if it'll be, sort of a final kind of evaluation, but we can put together some ideas and some things looking at. And I think also just looking at what other civic facility corporations are doing around the state.
Definitely.
One other thought I'll leave the board with too is we are looking at the fee. If the fee could be increased, is there some type of commission or something that might go to OOC? Because in this, OOC does not make any money from this company. So if we raise the fee to 1%, 1% of bond cost could 0.25% perhaps be in a sense of commission or some share. Or we're not certain on that. Rather than paying
for
an
labor?
annual fee. What's that?
Something to pay for the labor?
Yeah.
Similar to what we already have with the IDA.
Yeah.
Correct.
But instead of doing an annual fee that's kind of fixed, maybe it's a project-based amount or
Correct.
something.
So if there's no project, then there's no
Because
fee
it's
generated.
so inconsistent project flow.
The way our agreement's set up, that the IDA will cover the overage in the city, could in that contract be a discussion that there's a reimbursement for labor? Would that be reasonable to put in, and that we don't need a separate conversation, another contract between this group and OOC?
Oh, to the IDA.
Yeah, essentially they would just offset cost to the IDA, and then you wouldn't need to also reimburse it to OOC because they already have a contract with labor. I don't know, one less.
Something we can
Yeah.
consider as
Something
part of
revised in
that whole.
contract.
Could be set up that way. But right now it's, not enough cash to even pay our bills. It's kind of hard to.
Well, the problem is, how long have we had this, and what have we had, 2 or 3 now?
Too long,
The chances,
Yeah.
the chances are getting,
I think as long as interest rates stay high, there's a more chance for projects, because that's really where the value is that, higher interest rates are the higher the spread of what you could actually save on a tax exempt financing versus not tax exempt financing. So when interest rates were at 3%, you couldn't save anything.
I see other deals around the state where similar civic facilities corps, maybe it's a $300 million project for a hospital or something, that it's much bigger scale than this. So, and you can imagine the fees, and I don't know what percentage they charge, I haven't looked into that deeply, but the fees must be substantial.
yeah.
There is no limit to the bond amount that the civic facilities corp can do. for nonprofits, and where the IDA has a $10 million cap, there's no limit on politicians, no.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, there not being no other business, motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
Second Phil, seconded by Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned.
We anticipate
Thank you, everybody,
any
for
more
being here.
After this one, this year,
Just August,
Yeah,
unless
we
there's a
can get
project.
together.
after August.
Correct, no, August is the one, last one of the year unless there's another project.
We can set a date.
August 20th.
August
so-
20th.
Yeah.